Hey y'all. Okay, let's make this delicious meat sauce. I've done got behind today, y'all. I got it with a bang this morning and was cleaning my kitchen and got my fridge all cleaned out and everything was good to go. And I thought, okay, now I'm gonna go pick up my Walmart order and get this thing on the go. And then I got tied up here a second ago with something else and now I've done got behind. That's okay. All right, so what we're going to start with, y'all, is our ground beef, which this is a ground chuck. It was, y'all see I bought a big pack here. It was $4.49 a pound, and the ground beef was also $4.49 a pound. So I went ahead and went with the ground chuck, make it a little bit healthier and for the same price. So this is a little bit over 3 pounds. We're not going to use all of this, but we're going to use a lot of it. And y'all, now I don't get my meat at Walmart. People have asked me before. I have my little local grocery store here is where I get all of my meats. I mean, you can't get better meats than your little local stores. It's always good. It's always fresh. And I love it. I mean, it's not really a place where you can get all your staples. You know, they're usually a little bit more expensive than other places, and I understand that. But I do love the convenience of it, and I do grab a lot of stuff there. But I like to do a Walmart order or a Kroger run for most of my staples, and then I definitely always get my meats there, or just whenever I need to run grab something. Okay, so that's probably, we probably did a good 2.5 to pound, maybe even closer to 3, but that's okay. This sauce mixture, y'all, makes a ton. All right, let me get this ground beef going. I'm gonna get this put up. Y'all know I love to just stash back little bits of ground beef in my freezer. I'm gonna get my hands washed up, come back, and we're gonna get this going. Hey y'all, all right, we've got our ground beef over here draining, and then I put in about 2 tablespoons of butter. Okay, now we are going to put in, I have, now these bell peppers were pretty small. So I did 1 whole red bell pepper, about half or 3/4 of the green. I had a little bit of it left, and then I did about 1.5 onion. The onion was small also. Remember, if they're bigger, you could probably get away with 1, or even do half of your red and half of your green. But all of mine were pretty small. But I like a lot of those veggies in there. You could also, I know some people don't like bell pepper in their marinara sauce or meat sauce. If you don't, then don't put them in there. I like them in mine, and you can also add mushrooms. Now, I don't usually do mushrooms just because I never did. Neither one of my boys liked mushrooms, so it just wasn't something that I cooked with a lot. I like them, and I think they would be great in it, but I've just kind of got used to not having them, but you can certainly add them in yours. Okay, I'm just going to let this saute around for a little bit. We have some garlic here that we're going to put in. This is some fresh garlic. You can see I just kind of sliced it up. I did about 6 or 7 big cloves. We want a lot of garlic in this. Now, you can use less if you don't love a lot of garlic, but for something like this, the more garlic, the better, in my opinion. But you do however much you want to do. And also, y'all know I use my jar garlic a lot. If you don't have fresh garlic, your jar garlic will work just fine. I had that. I need to use it, but I do like to use fresh garlic in this meat sauce. This is one of those recipes that kind of takes a while. You want to put a little bit more time into it, so you want to use good quality ingredients. I do use a good tomato ingredient. You can do the cheaper ones, that will be fine. I usually will go cheaper for a lot of things, but when I make this sauce, I usually try to do a better quality of ingredients. So if you have a favorite, you use whatever you want to use, okay? So we're just gonna let these peppers and onions saute down for a little bit. I'm gonna crank this thing up. I moved it over here to my smaller burner. And then here in a minute, we'll throw the garlic in, and then we'll start tossing everything else in, and that's it. And we're just gonna let it slow cook, y'all. All right, y'all, let's put our garlic in. Like I said, I have about 6, 7 big cloves here. This is a lot of garlic. And I just cut it in big pieces because we slow cook this for so long, it gets soft. And there's nothing worse than trying to chop up garlic. Now you may have a garlic press, and that's great. I really need one. I don't know why I don't get one, but we're gonna let that saute around for a few minutes. And while that's doing that, I'm gonna tell you about our seasonings that we have here in this little bowl. I've already got these measured out, so I'm gonna tell you what I've got. I did 1 teaspoon of ground oregano, 1 teaspoon of ground thyme. I did 2 teaspoons of kosher salt, half a teaspoon of black pepper, about 1/4 teaspoon of crushed red pepper, and about 1.5 tablespoons of sugar. Okay, and then I'm calling this 1 bay leaf. It's 2 pieces, but you can do 1 to 2 bay leaves. Normally I would do 2, but I'm about out and I just grabbed these 2 little pieces. But if you have 2 bay leaves, go ahead and put your 2 bay leaves in. And then let me also tell y'all, all right, so that's the seasoning that I'm going to add in. Today I'm going to add in fresh parsley, and I will not add that in until the very end, and I will also add in some fresh basil, which will go in at the very end. However, if I don't have fresh parsley, at this point I would add in about 2 tablespoons of your dried parsley. Y'all know, like I use all the time. 2 tablespoons of this. If you're using fresh, you do about 1/4 of a cup, but you're going to add that in at the end. The way that I have learned is that your dry herbs go in the beginning to cook in your sauce. Your fresh goes in at the end. That's just the way that I do it. You do it however you want to do, and I am not claiming this to be an authentic Italian dish. This is just the way that I do it, okay? And as far as the basil goes, y'all know I have that fresh basil plant. So at the end, whenever I put in my fresh parsley, I'm going to put in some fresh basil. However, if I don't have fresh basil, I don't add any basil at all. I'm not crazy about dried basil. If you want to add you in a good teaspoon or 2 teaspoons, you can go ahead and do that. I just don't care for dried basil. I don't love the flavor of it, but I do love fresh, and that's why I have my little basil plant. So, and then since I was doing a grocery run, I went over ahead and grabbed my parsley, some fresh parsley, but y'all know I use my dried parsley a lot. I love it. So, sounds complicated, but it's not. If you use fresh parsley and fresh basil, toss it in at the end. It'll give it a wonderful flavor. If you use dried, put it in now whenever you put your other, here in a minute when we put our other seasonings in. 2 tablespoons of parsley to 1 cup of fresh parsley, okay? So it's very simple. I don't want to confuse you, but I just wanted to make sure and let y'all know that, you know, we learn things over the years. These are just things that I have learned and picked up and, you know, in my cooking. And remember, bay leaves and basil are 2 different things. They're not the same thing. So always go ahead, whether you use basil or whether you not, throw you a bay leaf or 2 in there, because it does give it a great flavor, okay? So I'm just going to let this saute around, y'all, for another minute or so. And then we will put our other stuff in. And also, if you don't like sugar in your spaghetti sauce, don't put sugar in it. I like a little bit of sugar. Like I said, in this here I have 1.5 tablespoons. We may even need to add more. That's just what I'm going to start with. So I'm going to let this cook another second, y'all, and I'll come back and we'll add our other stuff in. Okay, y'all, now we have 1 cup of white wine here. Now, this is 2 different kinds of wine. If you're wondering why it's this darker color, that is because I did about 3/4 of a cup of just regular white Chardonnay wine, and then I did about 1/4 cup of white wine vinegar. You can do just one or the other. I just had both of them, so I decided to do a mixture of both. But you can do one or the other, or if you don't want to do wine at all, or white wine vinegar, you can do 1 cup of beef broth, okay? So like I said, there's always different options for what you can do. All right, after your veggies have sauteed up a little bit, pour that in there. Remember, the alcohol cooks out, so we're just going to cook that around for a few minutes. That alcohol will absorb. or if you're using your beef broth, whichever one you're using. I'm gonna crank it back up, let that boil for a second, and now come back and we'll add our other stuff. All right, y'all, this has just been sitting here simmering for a little bit. We're going to go ahead and add in our tomatoes. This is one of the 28-ounce cans of peeled tomatoes. Now let me tell you what I did with this. I poured this out in a bowl, took my hand and squeezed those tomatoes up in little pieces, and then put it back in this can so I could show y'all what I'm using. If you want to put the tomatoes in there whole, you can, but I like to squeeze them up in little pieces. Just be careful, because when you squeeze them tomatoes, that juice goes everywhere, trust me. All right, and then we've got one 28-ounce can of crushed tomatoes. Now, if you don't so much like the chunks of tomatoes, you could do just 2 cans of crushed tomatoes instead of doing the whole tomatoes and crushing them up like I did, okay? All right, so I'm going to, of course, y'all can see we have a lot left in here. I'm going to run some water in these, and I'll come back and we're going to add that in. Okay, we just run a little bit of water in there, pour that in. A little bit in this one, pour that in. Now we're going to pour our little spice mixture in that we have here. Our herbs, our sugar, our salt, our pepper, crushed red pepper, our bay leaf, all of that good stuff. All right, let's give this a mix. I may have to trade out pans, y'all. Y'all know this is a new set that I have, and this may not be big enough, and I don't think it's going to, because we still have several things to add. I may have to get out my little steamer pot. Seems like the pan that I used to make this in, I don't know if I still have it or not. I may have to look for it. But y'all, even though I use those whole tomatoes, when you take your hands and kind of squeeze them up, they're not really in big chunks. It's more just like in little tomato pieces. So if you like that, then I recommend you doing that. But if you don't, just do 2 cans of crushed tomatoes. Or you could do 2 cans of whole tomatoes. You can do anything you want to do. This is just an idea and just a way of me showing you how I do it. I tell you what, we still have to add our ground beef in. Some more sauce we got over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to swap pans. Let me get out my big pan, because this is not going to work, y'all. And I'll be back. All right, y'all, now we are in business. I know that this pot will work because I have used it before. So I have my big pot out here. Like I said, y'all, this makes a big batch. All right, now we're going to put some tomato paste in. Put that on my hand here. We're just going to do this whole container. This is 6 ounces. And that's why I said you can easily half this recipe and you will still have quite a bit. This is perfect to freeze. And then you can get it out and you boil you some pasta and then you have it. It is very good. And you can use this with any Italian dish that you want to make. Lasagna, spaghetti, I've made it with rigatoni, baked ziti, stuffed shells, really anything you want to do with it, okay? All right, so we got that. And then the last thing we're going to add is just a whole jar of store-bought sauce. Whatever kind of sauce you want to add, okay? Toss that in. Y'all see how this thing is growing? I'm gonna run a little bit of water in this, and then we're gonna get that in there. Okay, pour that in. All right, let me get our ground beef. And then we're going to put that in. Okay. Now all we do, we get this mixed up. Now remember, if you want to add a little bit more liquid, if you think it's too thick, you can always do that. If you think it's too thin, you can add in a little bit more tomato paste. I like to let it cook for just a little bit because usually it will thin up a little bit as it cooks, and then I decide if I want to add more liquid. But now only thing I'm going to do is just let this slow simmer for a couple hours. Then at the very end, like I said, I will add in parsley about 1/4 cup, about 1/4 cup of fresh basil, and about 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan. But y'all look at this. You talk about good, and you talk about your house. Oh, I've got that everywhere. I have to clean that up. You talk about your house smelling good, and you talk about a good sauce. This is it. You will love it. Okay? And I don't call this a homemade sauce. I call this a semi-homemade sauce because, of course, we're not using all fresh stuff. But this is delicious. I want y'all to try it. I'm going to end this video. That way, if someone just wants to see the sauce recipe, they can just come on here and see it. And I plan to use this and make us a lasagna, but I'll do a different video for that. That way, if somebody just wants to watch lasagna or just a sauce recipe, they can. And you may want to make this sauce mixture and just make you some spaghetti or something else. So we're going to cut it up into different videos, and I'm sure I will make something else besides the lasagna with this because it makes so much. So we will get several different recipes out of this big pot of sauce, y'all. It looks so good. It already smells good. Y'all've got to try this. Let me get y'all down here so you can get a good look at it. That look good. Okay, y'all. I'm going to turn you off for now. I'm going to get all this cleaned up. That's what I love about doing stuff like this, because while this is so cooking, I can kind of get everything else cleaned up and squared away and decide then what I'm going to do next or what we're going to make with it. So, I will come back. Y'all will see it. Y'all come back for part 2, and I'll show y'all what we're going to do with this delicious sauce, which I'm planning on doing a delicious lasagna. I haven't done one in so long, so I'm excited for it. All right, I will see y'all later. Bye-bye.